Later, in accordance with Albanian tradition, Mr. Thanasi has invited all the participants at the restaurant Bella Vita. He thanked all the participating members, remembering with love and respect all his friends from Bënça, who decided to travel so far in America for a better life. Memorial lunch organized by the nephews and nieces in honor of the members of the Thanasi family. In the US, they are no longer with us. Cemile, Shefqet, Mustafa, Earl and Paul Kamber. Later, in accordance with Albanian tradition, Mr. Thanasi has invited all the participants at the restaurant Bella Vita. He thanked all the participating members, remembering with love and respect all his friends from Bënça, who decided to travel so far in America for a better life. Among other things, Mr. Thanasi said, "Dear friends, honored relatives, brothers and sisters, honored patriots, I'm filled with emotion standing here today, an emotion similar to the one I felt when my father first told me about the history of our family, Thanasi. He described dark times when the First World War broke out, which resulted in burnings and destruction all across southern Albania, our village Bënça included. It was around that time that 114 people were forced by the harsh conditions to leave their homes. 12 of them were our relatives, 5 of which were direct family. The family consisted of these members: Patriot Kamber Thanasi and his wife, Cemile Thanasi, 3 sons, Zenel Kamber Thanasi, my grandfather, the eldest, Shefqet Kamber Thanasi, the middle son, Mustafa Kamber Thanasi, the youngest. Other relatives: Koçi Shqyri Thanasi, Koçi Thanasi, Pëllumb Bektash Thanasi, Delo Bektash Thanasi, Hysen Metli Thanasi, Sadiq Uzeir Thanasi, Ruka Sadik Thanasi. Years passed and Zeneli, my grandfather, decided to return to his homeland. in the years following Çavushi and Cemile, returned to where Çavushi falls gravely ill and dies in Albania. After a short time, Cemile decides to return to her other boys back in America and dies here in 1955. Dear participants who have had the honor to come to the remembrance of our loved ones, one of the most prominent and patriotic personalities of our national culture, who apparently has lived in the Albanian communities quite actively, Kamber Shefqet Bënça. Shefqeti, along with 12 members of the Thanasi family, and together with 113 men and women, boys and girls from the village of Bënça, crossed distant Atlantic, thousands of kilometers of ocean, and came to America. There were two reasons they took no simpler initiative. The first, to save himself and then to return and fix the damages caused by the mass burnings, deeds from groups of criminal Greek gangs that our village Bënça suffered together with other villages of South Albania. For this, a song testifies. Women of Laboria, with crying babies in hand, cry and shout for poor Albania. Thousands of people took refuge in the suburbs and the city of Lora. Bënça conveyed its sons and daughters in the country of America. The second reason, the only worldwide symbol of democracy and the only able to offer you, besides its economic aid, to rebuild your life, the help of political confrontation against neighboring countries threatening to tear apart southern and northern territories, was America. Shefqeti, born in 1902, gets to take the name of the village Bënça, that for reasons of maintaining the identity and because of his convictions to the oath, not to forget that he was Albanian and that was from the village somewhere in the mountains in southern Albania. Shefqet Kamber uses that surname, his grandfather's, always remembering the honor that name carries. He was only 12 years old, that when he arrived to a distant land, that he knew how to keep his legacy and national consciousness, which at the age of 19 he proved by entering in Vatra. From the Sun, newspaper of 1921, we see that as a pan-Albanian society, Vatra, or Hearth, increases continuously, so does the name and personality of Shefqet Bënça. He was elected chairman of the Assembly several times, secretary of the Assembly reporter, several-time member of the committee, and continuously active member of Vatra, for its ongoing problems for the national cause. Shefqet Bënça was not simply a member of Vatra. He managed to present opinions and solid arguments on the published history of Skanderbeg to pan-Noli. Shefqeti fought to defend and secure an archive for the Vatra society, and this is enough testimony of his wide culture and high intellect. Shefqeti was not coincidentally the head of the banquet organized in honor of the 40th anniversary of the arrival of pan-Noli in America. As head of the society, it was his complete personality, a known fact, which gave him credibility and later on the opportunity to run this important ceremony. Shefqeti was also struggling to prevent conflicts and division in the society, and this is seen in the call that he makes for joining them to free Albania. Shefqeti was a kind-hearted man who grew, matured, and became a fighter of the Albanian national cause, together with other patriots and the Voice Society, the national newspaper, The Sun. He supported pan-Noli as much as Konica, maintaining such delicate balances. He is constantly mentioned as a man who devoted his entire life to the national issue. He never married, and his only marriage was merging with the ideals as a patriot and as Vatra intellectual and a Sun reporter. He continued patriotic activity from age 19 to the day he died at 68 years, in May 8, 1970. Without Vatra members, we would not have independent Albania. Without Vatra members, we would not have democratic Albania. I organize this homage to the graves of our family members, grandmother Cemile, Uncle Shefqeti, and Uncle Mustafa, and our brothers, Earl and Paul, because once, many years ago, I promised my father that the first chance I had, I would go to America and respect his last wish. We'll meet with the rest of the Thanasi family living here, whom he never managed to meet, and would pay my respects to all the other family members no longer living. It is a moving and important event for us, the grandchildren, that after so many years the opportunity to put flowers in their graves is given to us. As our people say, God delays but does not forget. I am proud that the day to keep this promise alongside the rest of my family in America has finally arrived. At this 100th anniversary of Bënca, grandchildren and nephews, along with society members, take pride in Uncle Shefqet and are proud to put a bouquet on his grave 42 years after his passing. Let their memory never be forgotten.
Patriot Thanasi, fjalën e ka marrë Dr. John Bënça.
Honored members of Shefqet extended family, it is a double pleasure because after a long period of time, we gathered here today to remember your kin from America, but also from our homeland. It was a day of remembrance, but also a day of celebration, because it reminded us of the work and personality of this great patriot who spared nothing in the blessed land of America, which was seen as the land of salvation and the opportunity to live, to survive, and prosper. I remember when we commemorated the 100th anniversary of the pan-Albanian Federation of America Hearth a few days ago. Albanian Prime Minister said, "It is a great pain when you leave the country, but we do not feel pain when Albanians, citizens, arrive in America, because there they remain Albanians and send our country much of their prosperity, thanks to the deep friendships that exist here since the time of our compatriots from Hearth."
Kryeministri i Shqipërisë tha, është dhimbje e madhe kur të largohen qytetarët nga vendi. Nuk jemi dhimbje kur qytetarët vjen në Amerikë, sepse atje ata mbeten shqiptarë dhe i ndihmojnë Shqipërisë dhe e pasurojnë edhe vendin kurin, vendin mik të Amerikës, e cila disa herë shpetoj Shqipërinë, disaje të misësisë që i vatra dhe vatran. Shefqet Bënça i mirë me shokë kanë krijuar këtë lidhje dhe këtë misësi në Amerikë. Është kënaqësi për ne, është edhe krenari në këtë moment këtu si ta i vatrës dhe vatranët kemi ardhur nga Shqipëria, Bafjarin, Bezorin, Birin, Ardiatus dhe Shqipërin.
It's our pleasure, but also pride in the moment to have Baftyar with his wife, son and daughter here, and all blood relatives and friends gathered at this commemoration. His work is not forgotten, but is commemorated, the work that is on the right path, in the path of patriotism, and at the same time, allow me to say, freedom has removed the limitation.
In English, I want to say that it is a satisfaction, it is a day of celebration, not of mourning. It is a day when the family, large family of Thanasi, of Bënça, got together, and this is a good day, and it's a great day today. We are also proud. We are happy also on the name of this organization to which Shefqet Bënça gave his best years of life. That the occasion came so we could together with family members and Baftyar that came from far away to bring flowers to his grave, to commemorate him, to remember him with gratitude and with appreciation for what he was. we wish to everybody health and all the best. And we wish you to keep in touch with each other, in touch with back home, with our roots there. And let me add in Albanian, uroj gjithëve që të marrin gjithmonë lidhen liria, kufizimit dhe dojnë që të falenderojmë edhe për sotën, gjithashtu dojnë që sotën të ashtori për gzime të ashtonatë që për të mirë. Shefqet Bënça ishte njëri që dha gjithçka vatës.
I thank you for the meal. Also wish that we will always gather for happy occasions. Shefqet Bënça was the man who gave everything for national issues. Mr. Baftiar from Albania, who came here to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Hearth, sent in our account $1,000. A considerable amount, but they are not compared to the moral values of his participation from the homeland to help Shefqet Kamber Thanasi, who dedicated his entire life to our national issues, for the good of the country, for the good of the homeland. I say a word here that may joy and prosperity always exist in your home. Later on, the relatives and guests spoke in this memorial. The first to speak was Baftiar's uncle, Mr. Hader Pulashi, who thanked everyone present in the memorial for the members of the Thanasi family who are no longer living. Rustam's speech. With an Albanian toast, our in-law, Rustam Berisha, congratulates Baftiar. Greetings to this noble family and their relatives, recalling honored, after 42 years, their beloved, great patriot, Shefqet Kamber Thanasi. He said, a teacher began to speak, so another older, who did not like the talk, addressed him. What are you saying? He said, I worked all my life as a teacher. I don't know how to talk to men. That was meant as a joke. Baftiar is not only a teacher, but also a professor. He has a reputation as an excellent employee, as a respected gentleman in society everywhere. The ceremony held today and other facts show that Baftiar is received and dealt with manly acts, manly work, large and good work. Now, according to our custom in Albania, I would wish health to you, Baftiar, and Mrs. Kostandina, and all your family. Health to Shefqet's nephew, Kenneth, and his children, Melanie Kamber, Bendorf, and Frank Kamber, and his nieces, Emily, Lauren, Christine, Blair, daughters of his brother Paul.
Përshëndetjet vazhdojnë mes të pranishmëve. Foli dhe ish nxënësi zotit Baftiar, zoti Mondi Ismailati, ku dhe ai shpreh konsideratën dhe mirënjohjen për familjen Thanasi.
Ka përshëndetur me një poezi kushtuar Shefqet Bënçës dhe ndërkohë ka kujtuar shumë vatran të tjerë të Pelenas, ku ndërmjet tyre përmendi dhe këta.
Edmond Ismailati read a poem dedicated to Shefqet Bënça, and in the meantime he mentioned a lot of other people from Tepelena, such as some of the mentioned names and their nieces and nephews still living in the US. He kept saying,
Nukrit e mbesat që ndodhen sot në Amerikë. Ai vazhdoi.
Biznes sot zoti Shefqet Bënça, e nderim në respekt të madh të drejtori për Hearthian, të cilën të vatës shqiptare, doktorit John Buçaj, editorit të diellit.
Dear participants, no doubt if he was among us, Shefqet Kamber Thanasi, with reverence and respect, he would welcome the delegation of Mr. Dr. John Buçaj, son editor, Mr. Dalip Grecia, and others. At the same time, I take the opportunity to greet his family, who came from Albania, especially my former professor, Mr. Baftiar Thanasi, all other members of the Thanasi family, and all patriots from each country who have come here in this commemoration. Having heard the salutation of Professor Baftiar, there were many activities concerning Shefqet bench, and I got a study by researchers and author of the book, The Encyclopedia of Tepelena, Mr. Navruz Shehu, which is long, so I am only reading an expert. I am reading about contributions of Mr. Shefqet Kamber Thanasi that is profound throughout many years as a chairman of the Federation, its secretary, publicist, journalist, reporter, prominent activist and ardent supporter of Noli, Konica and the national cause. CES supporters, except Shefqeti, are many other Tepelenians that are worth mentioning because their grandchildren are here today in this commemoration as Bilbil Jeb, Aslan Dragoti, Hamid Veise Meshgorani, Haki Chika, Merko Kuchi, Mamije Duke, Duke Shajqo, Muzejen Zhurba, Kasem Duke, Kemal Veyseli, Kamber Dervish Yahupi, Jafar Lagdushi, Yace Aslan Meshgorani, etc. Here are Feizo Kuchi and Robert Kuchi, who are grandchildren of the Hearthian Merko Kuchi. Keze Kozeta Zylo, granddaughter of Hearthian Hamid Veise Meshgorani. Skander Hoxha, nephew of Hearthian Shaqir Shagon. Mimoza Yahupi, Hoxha, the niece of Hearthian Kamber Dervish Yahupi, and journalist of the World Today, Mr. Beqir Sina, who is an Hearthian son, Rasim Sina, who has been president of the Brooklyn branch and for several years throughout the Federation, General Secretary of Hearth. Given the large contribution of Mr. Shefqet as Shefqeti for a United Albania, I wrote a poem, and this I will read especially for you. In Bënça of Illyrian tribes, born in a noble boy, is Shefqet Thanasi. As a surname, he keeps his village. Guns of Greek soldiers massacred children and elderly. The village was emptied, remained deserted. The pain of exile took forever. Shefqeti, with family, arrived in America. He grew, became a man with patriotic ardor. At Noli and Konica he idolized. His soul with Hearthians united one day. He baptized his life with patriotic love, an oath he made with Hearth for Albania, united as one heart, south and north, to protect the country from its enemies. All swore as an item, all stated, Fanoli himself, Mother, do not be afraid, you have your sons in the US. Surprises, whatever they may be, leave you with your mouth hanging open. But this particular surprise is not like that. As soon as he saw Baftiar's nephew, Rustemi asked if such young members were allowed inside Hearth. In the memorial held by his grandfather, Kevin Thanasi, no older than a month old was present. By coincidence or fate, Kevin was born in the US. Everyone welcomed the youngest member of the great Thanasi family in the event. Mr. Dalip Greca, chief editor of The Sun, an organ of the pan-Albanian Federacy in America. Hearth responded to Rustam's question, stating that membership in Hearth is not constricted by age. Kevin didn't understand what was happening around him, but his grandfather was holding a memorial lunch for his ancestors, and once he came of age, he would also be part of his ancestry. Speech by The Sun, newspaper editor Mr. Dalip Greca. Commemoration lunch in honor of Shefqet Kamber Thanasi. During a short break, everyone's attention turned away towards the hall after the arrival of the great-grandson of Hearthian Shefqet Kamber Thanasi. It was the professor's grandson, Kevin Thanasi. He was born a month ago in New Jersey and was accompanied by his mother. Moved by this sight, family friend Mr. Rustem Berisha stood from the table where he was and asked permission to speak once again by asking President Dr. John Buchai, I do not know how it is the status of memberships in terms of age for young children, but don't you think that we should make an exception and accept toddler Kevin Thanasi, who had become present at the dinner memorial just a few minutes ago? Because of this proposition of Mr. Rustem Berisha, rises editor of the newspaper The Sun, Mr. Dalip Greca, who said that he had only 2 words to say. He welcomed the participants and Thanasi family. In addition, he mentioned the taking occasion by the proposition of Mr. Rustem and said that browsing through records he had done for national loans, where there was Shefqeti's name itself, all other Hearthians, about 5,000 people, have given their savings to help Albania, and state have given about $200,000 of that time. And he said, what is interesting, because in that register the names are stored with name, address, paternity, and there are names of children 1 year, 3 months, 3 years old. Comment it yourself.
Në këtë drek përkujtimore e mori fjalën
In this memorial lunch, a speech was held by journalist, poet, and intellectual Mrs. Kozeta Zylo, a well-known name in the Albanian diaspora, who for many years now has been living in the US with her husband, who is also her closest colleague, Mr. Kemal Zylo. The pair are the co-founders and directors of the famous Albanian-speaking television channel Alba Life in New York, which is a beacon of Albanian values in the American community. Kozeta and Kemal Zylo, simultaneously, are the co-founders and directors of the Albanian schools Alba Life in 3 neighborhoods of New York, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Manhattan.
Staten Island, Brooklyn dhe Manhattan.
Dear Mr. Baftiar, dear family Thanasi, who have come today to honor the magnificent figure Shefqet Kamber Thanasi. Dear Mr. Chairman, John Buchai, and all Hearthians and supporters who have come and are gathered here today to honor a magnificent figure to us. It's thrilling to meet today in this beautiful modest lunch because a descendant from Bënça, Tepelena, to find the remains of his uncle after 2,042 years. I was moved, especially when his nephew, Mr. Thanasi, said, I promised my father I will find the remains of Mr. Shefqet Kamber Thanasi. As an Albanian, a modest activist in the diaspora, and as a Tepelenian, I'm very proud of the figure of Mr. Shefqet Kamber Thanasi, who gave his life for Hearth, for Albania and the Albanian national cause. The remarkable intellectual life of Shefqet Bënça was because he came from a family with centuries-old traditions, noble traditions, which have given enough for our nation. It's even more exciting that soon, I believe, the newspaper editor of The Sun, Dalip Greca, will reflect that there are many villages in Old Tepelena who contributed with great value for Albania and Hearth. And just being told today, for Shefqet Bënça, he debated with the great, almost sacred figure, pan Noli, and indeed we have what to learn from Shefqet Bënça's criticism. And at the same time, I want to wish you long life and Hearth may live as long as Albania.
Dhe pikërisht duke u mbledhur sot për Shefqet Bënçën, I cili ka replikuar me figurën e madhe, figurën gati të shenjtë pan Noli, dhe me të vërtet ne kemi të shqetësojmë nga kritika e Shefqet Bënçës. Dhe njëkohësisht do të desha të uroja jetë gjatë Batrës dhe Batra do të rojë sa të rojë Shqipëria.
May his memory never be forgotten. And as Alba Television Live representative and on behalf of Albanian language schools in New York, we will always remember with nostalgia and great respect. We are proud of the activity and figure of Mr. Shefqet Kamber Thanasi as an Albanian and Tepelenian. Piano player Pat Camello, who has been an accompanying performer for Pavarotti, in honor of all the guests in this memorial lunch, will play a few pieces in the piano. Thank you.